Hello everybody. So today we're going to have a look at the form fill assistance feature within PowerApps. Now this feature has been around for a little while now in various forms. Some parts of it are in preview, some are in production ready preview, others are in production. It's a little bit confusing, but we'll step through and see what it looks like in its current form and how it works. Now I'm a massive fan of this feature. What I see when talking to customers is that a lot of people want to take advantage of AI, generative AI specifically, and 99% of scenarios at the moment are through some kind of chatbot interface. That's kind of how this technology first was surfaced via ChatGPT and OpenAI, and it's been the way that a lot of it has stuck over the last few years. Now, what I see is there's pretty quickly you start hitting a limit with that way of interacting with a generative AI model in terms of how productive you can be and how much it can really help you. Don't get me wrong, it is helpful, it can be helpful, but I find people quite quickly hit the limits of interacting with it in that way. And with the sort of power that these models give you, there's definitely better ways that we could interact with them by putting a bit more thought into the user experience. And this is something that Microsoft, I think, have done really, really well with this form fill assistance feature. It's definitely not perfect. As I say, a lot of it's still in preview, but I think it's a really great method to improve the data entry experience, which when we think about it, when we're running businesses, we don't really want people to be doing data entry. We want to avoid it wherever we can. Sometimes, unfortunately, it is necessary, but this is an amazing way of improving it. So let's step through what it looks like. So this is available within model-driven apps in PowerApps, and that means it's also available within the Dynamics apps that are model-driven apps, so sales, customer service, customer insights, etc. In this demo here, so I've just got Kia Workspace open. This is a product that we have, which is a simplified version of Dynamics Sales and Service for smaller businesses. But as I say, this will work in any model-driven app that you enable it for. So what I've got here is I've created a custom table called RFPs. So requests for proposals, fairly common in any business that is supplying government organisations or any other large-scale businesses that have a formal procurement process, where you might get sent these insanely large documents that can be hundreds of pages outlining exactly what they want, and then you can submit your response into how you could potentially provide those services for that organisation. So I've just come up here with a few basics of what we might have if we were tracking these sorts of things. So title, summary, bit of background, methodology, requirements, etc. So these are some kind of free-form type text things that someone's going to need to sit there and think about what they're going to write. And then we also have our more formal fields around dates and times for deadlines and the expected start date. Now, I have created a very rough dummy RFP document. So I've just taken a document from GETS, which is the New Zealand system for local and central government procurement, and I've anonymized it and changed it around a bit. The original for this was, I think, 70 pages long. This one's only 7. But you can see there's some basic information there about requirements, a bit of background, and what the outcomes they're looking to achieve are. Now, I could spend ages reading through that document and deciding exactly how I want to populate these fields in here and figuring out what these dates are, but that's somewhere where the AI form fill assistance is really going to help me out. Now, it's never going to fully replace needing to read the document. For an RFP, someone on your team's always going to have to read through it in detail, but for creating these records in your other systems, this summarization, the form fill assistance, it can really reduce the time that we need to spend on it. So all I need to do is go and grab that file and drag it into this toolbar up here. And in the background, what's going to happen is Copilot is going to send off to the model, hey, here's a list of all of the fields that are on this form, and here's the information that I have. Can you help me fill these in? And we can see what it's come back with. So it's actually filled in most of our fields. We've got our title, summary, background, our key requirements. Now what we can do, if we like all of this, we can just hit up here, accept 8 suggestions, and it's going to accept all of them for us. Or we might want to work through them one at a time to decide if they suit what we require. The good thing when you work through them one at a time, if I hover over this title field here, and I hover over the I I can see where in the document it actually sourced this from. So this bit in bold at the top here, request for proposal for M25041, etc. That's actually written in the document, and it's highlighting the part of the document that it found it in. Now, I think there's definitely room for improvement here with some of the citations that you currently get from Copilot in terms of making it even more specific, but this is a really nice start. So I can go, yep, I'm happy with that. I'm just going to hit the tick. Now, if it's a field like this summary, which is a bit more something that LLMs had to output itself, it's not just gone and found a bit of the document to copy. If I hover over the I, it's just going to say contents of file. So I know that it's interpreted itself based on the contents of this file. That said, I can be happy with it. I can tick it. Same for these two. Now my key requirements probably doesn't look great. It's a bit short for what I'd want to see in here. So that one I can just go, nah, you know what? I don't want that one. And then over here, and what we can see actually, just to point out, as we're ticking these, this accept free suggestion, this is ticking down the number. So if we get to a point where we've looked at all this, we're happy with it all, we can just go, yep, I'm happy to accept these 3. And then we can save our document, our file, sorry. And there we have it, it's filled it in for us. Now it's not just documents that can come into here. So if I hit new and I'm going to create a new one, another thing I've got here is just an example email. And this is based on that same document, but it's an email from a fictional person that we've been sent to as a supplier outlining what they're looking for with the RFP. Now I can actually select this. I can copy it, Control C. I can come back in and we see we've got this icon here for Smart Paste. So I could click on this icon, or even better, I can just click anywhere on the screen that's not in a field and press Control V. And you might get this prompt to allow the clipboard, so I'm just going to hit allow. And it's going to do the same thing that it did before from the document, but with, we can see, the clipboard data. And so we've got some similar things. Now with the clipboard data, you're only ever going to see clipboard under the I, but it's filled it in a pretty similar way. And again, we could accept all the suggestions. Now, an important thing to note is we can upload multiple documents. So let's try again with, we'll start with a blank one. We'll get that same RFP document come in again. And it's going to look for suggestions. We'll just give it a sec. Here it is. So it's come back with them. And now I've also got another document here, dummy RFP requirements, which is basically just some tables with some list of requirements. So I can also feed this one in at the same time. Now, there's a really important watch out here. And this is somewhere where I think Microsoft could improve this feature. But at the moment, if it can, the way it's going to work is it's going to look at the most recent document you uploaded. And it's going to say, hey, can I, based on the information in that document, fill in a title, fill in a summary, fill in a background, etc. And we can see here when we hover over it that it's come from the dummy RFP requirements document. So all of these fields have come from requirements, even though it also had them in the original RFP document. And I would argue that some of the fields it populated based on the original RFP document were actually better than it has done with the requirements document. So what it can't do at the moment is it can't go, okay, you've given me 2 PDFs, now I'm going to figure out the best thing to put in the field. It's actually going to say, hey, I'm going to take the most recent PDF. Can I fill in the fields? If I can, great. I'm just going to stop there. I'm only going to go back to the previous one if there's a field that I can't fill in. And we can see that over here because the dates are not in this requirements document, so the dates are still coming from the original RFP PDF. Now let's look at what happens if we already have data within a record. So this has just gone back to the one we created earlier, and we perhaps want to add to it, or if we try and use the form fill assistant again. So the form fill assistant will only open by default for new records. If I'm opening an existing record that has data, I can see that it's a new icon up the top over here, so I can open it up. So this one has most fields populated. Now, if I drag on the RFP requirements document to here, so when a form already has data, the form fill assistant is never going to propose a change to any existing data. So what we can see is it's only brought in information into the blank field for key requirements. It hasn't tried to overwrite any of the others. Now, there's arguments both ways for whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and it might be helpful if it could try and update existing fields as well, but for now it only looks at blank fields. Now, alongside that, if I think about what this field is, key requirements, this probably isn't great. Yeah, system must meet compliance standards, it's got language requirements and some SLA. That's not really the key requirements of the document, and it's also not that well formatted. Even if I accept this, it's just a bit of text, right? So what I'm actually going to do is I am going to close this. We'll just give that, save it, make sure we've got it blank. We do. So when Copilot sends the documents or your clipboard content alongside the fields on the form to the model needs to be able to interpret what do those fields actually mean. So we've got the field names, but it also uses the field description. Now, field descriptions in Dataverse is something a lot of people don't pay much attention to, and it's very common to see them just left blank. So if I go back into my workspace here, and I've got this key requirements field. So I've deliberately left the description here blank. So all the information Copilot is getting, when it sends this off, it sends it to the model, it's just going key requirements. And it's done a fairly good job based on that of interpreting it, but we could be a lot clearer. Now, I just want to be clear, I don't think it's a good idea to suddenly turn your description fields into prompts for an AI model. They are there for a reason. They do need to make sense to your users and for all the other areas that they're used in. But having a description is going to improve the output significantly. So in here, I could write something like, I don't know, top 5 requirements for this RFP listed in order. Now, obviously, in a real scenario, you wouldn't use a free text field for this kind of stuff. This is just as an example for this demo. So let's save that. Okay, and let's come back, and I'm just going to hard refresh this. Going to try putting that requirements document in again. So we'll show the form field assist. We'll drag in our document. Just going to get the Word document. Let's see what we get this time. So now we actually get a list. Citizen view across all departments, single sign-on, automated daily backups. It's formatted it in the way we've kind of asked for it within the description because we've given it better context. So using this feature is a great reminder to people to, make sure you're using your description fields in Dataverse. They are super important to give context both to AI models but also to your users when they're filling these things in. So we can save that. And we're sorted, and there we go. It's created the record for us super quickly. It's got extracted the key information, and it's saved us a pretty decent amount of time there. As I said, early days, a lot of this is still in preview, but this is super interesting approach to improving the UX around interacting with AI models, and I think going to be a huge time saver for a lot of businesses, given there's not much setup involved. This is going to work on any table that you've got in a model-driven app. Obviously, as we saw, it's better if you have already done your descriptions. You're going to get a better result. But I could come to any of these other default tables that we've got in Kia Workspace, such as deals. I could go, hey, I want a new deal. And I could drag that same document into here. And based on the information that I've got in here, so this is obviously a much simplified version, but it's pulled out some key information that I can use for that. I haven't had to train it. I haven't had to go, hey, this means this or anything like that. Now, a key thing you might have noticed, it can't currently do lookups. So it can't figure out that, hey, I've got an account for Metro City Corporation, for instance, or a contact. So that's still a limitation of it. It can't deal with lookup fields, but it can take away a lot of that work around those sort of bigger free text type fields. Hey, hope you found that helpful and interesting, and I hope you have a chance to check this feature out.